Dear listeners, if you have some younger audience members in the room, please be aware that this episode may contain language not suitable for everyone.
I'm Sarah Jackson, host of Internal Comms Pro, the podcast, a listening experience choreographed to help you elevate your internal communications to the pro level.
The thing that dropped severely was a sense of belonging. Someone said corporate communications shall not be fun. Bullshit! We are people talking to people about their work and the work they do and how that means something as part of the bigger picture. We need to focus on people. Our job is to make the important interesting, and you do that by focusing on people. What's missing in the virtual world are these people stories, or everybody's at home. So we gotta get into their homes.
This is time. Have fun with it and go for it. I mean, this is exciting. The future of what we do hinges on the fact of our ability to constantly evolve, and it has never been a more important time to do the listening part. It's not optional anymore. Communicators out there, if you want to secure your position now and in the future, don't get comfy.
Those are my dear friends, Steve and Cindy Crescenzo, two of the top internal communication experts from our globe. Today you're in for a real treat. Have you ever had those friends, the ones that will sit across from you at the dinner table and tell you the hard truth? Well, that's Steve and Cindy. I've known these two for years, and every time I leave one of their trainings, I come back not only with a healthier self-awareness, but also a sense of hope. A hope that I'm in the right spot and that I can do this. Now, I'm not going to lie, this episode did sting. Y'all know my hunt for a good cheat sheet. Well, my love for templates, frameworks, and formulas, that all gets totally blown up. Steve and Cindy did not disappoint. They deliver yet another hard truth I needed to hear. So get ready to sit down at a new table, the truth table. A table that Steve and Cindy will set that will empower you to keep your communications relevant and provide your employees with a greater sense of belonging like never before.
Hey Sarah, this is Cindy Crescenzo. I am president of Crescenzo Communications. That's my official title.
Hey Sarah, how are you? My name is Steve Crescenzo and I work for Cindy.
You guys, I cannot believe you're here.
We're so glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
It's just a little shocking that it took you so long. I mean, who else have you had on here? I mean, God, we're like the dregs. We're like, oh, hey, we got nobody this week. Call Crescenzo's. They're probably drunk and they'll agree to it.
No, well, you were so booked, I couldn't get to, your agent. So, wow, what a year have we had for 2020. My gracious. And, our listeners do not get tired of hearing everyone's stories. I always ask, what was that like for you? I want to talk about that because they like to compare, and everyone's story is so unique. So talk a little bit about 2020 and how do you feel COVID has reshaped and even redefined the world of internal communications?
Well, I think, I think our situation, mine and Cindy's, sort of encapsulates or is the epitome of what happened in the bigger world.
Yeah, and I think too, that whole time, remember, I think we were all in the same boat where we were like, well, this is only gonna be a couple months. This is insanely temporary. We could just ride the wave and, in a couple months we'll be right back at it. And I think the acceptance hit everybody that, oh my gosh, this is going to be here for a while. This is life as we know it now.
Yeah, and I think we did what everybody else did, and the first 6-7 months was all about productivity. It was about learning new work habits. This is what's happening with employee communications. All the employees were about learning new work habits, adjusting to working from home, figuring out how to work virtually, figuring out how to stay connected to their team and their boss. I think all those nuts and bolts of just day-to-day work were the first part. And they just wanted news on the COVID. When are we coming back? What are we doing to keep us safe? What's happening with that? And that employee communications, that's when everybody got so swamped because, news became incredibly important. Before, if you posted every day, it was on, United Way, or it was on some team winning an award, and you take some stupid picture of them holding a stupid plaque. And All of a sudden, we had critical news that had to get out fast without an approval process weighing it down. It
Yeah.
had to be clearly written. It had to be concise. It couldn't be all the corporate bullshit we do with like in an ongoing effort to better understand the needs and blah 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 blah. People didn't have time for that shit. They needed to get their news quickly, and the employee communications stepped up, I think, in a lot of ways, and delivered that news. But now we're shifting into the second phase, I think, and that is we need to go further than just a news delivery service. We need to start building community again. We need to build engagement, which is harder in a virtual world. I think I just saw a survey by Slack, which is an online tool I'm sure you're familiar with. And what they found was they looked at the five, main factors of what they call the employee experience. And they found that work-life balance, satisfaction with the working arrangement, stress or anxiety about work, productivity, and a sense of belonging. Well, the first four all went up. Work-life balance went way up. People are okay with this, for the most part, according to the survey. Satisfaction working arrangements went up 20%. Stress or anxiety about work, that improved by 17%. Productivity went up by 10%. The thing that dropped severely was a sense of belonging. And I think that's what we're hearing from our clients, and that's what we're hearing from people that we're hosting a series of free roundtables just to keep our hand in and keep talking to our, people in our field. And what we're hearing is that that's what's lacking now is leadership was really good in the beginning about being transparent and being available and being regular. Well, now they're starting to fall back into communicate when I feel like it. And the employees want to see their leaders. They want to have that.
But we set a standard, right? I mean, it's a standard and we can't go back. I mean, once you give it to them the way that they expect it in their everyday lives, you can't really roll back time. You look ancient.
I mean, in the beginning, we heard about leaders dropping into team happy hours, leaders dropping into this meeting or that meeting via Teams. And some of that's still going on, obviously, but I think some people are getting away from it again now, and they're sort of slipping back into the old corporate way, which is, tell them what they need to know, when they need to know it, and they don't need to know much. And, so another study came out by Edelman that there's a real lack of transparency. There's a lack of trust with employees that's starting to build. So I think now is kind of the critical phase. And that is, okay, we've proven that we can deliver the news. We've proven that we can act fast and turn on a dime when we have to. Now we've got to go beyond that. We've got to say, what do we do when we no longer have that physical ecosystem of people sitting in cafeterias, sitting in meetings, having happy hour after work together? They're all at home, or a lot of them are at home, I should say. How do we build that culture and those values and all that? The work processes are laid out. They're working. I mean, companies are doing well with that. Teams, the shift to virtual. Now it's like, okay, how do we make them feel they're a sense of something bigger? And you do that storytelling, and you do that by employee profiles, and you do that with leadership communications. We got to improve in all of those areas.
Yeah. Well, and that's the one thing we heard, again from our listeners. How do we sustain some of these things that, really worked in the beginning? Get us started. So we've got this issue where we're tired. We got to sustain some of this stuff now that leadership's lacking. What problem do you see with internal communicators now when it comes to, all right, I'm developing my new plan for 2021. Where are they getting tripped up here? And what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think what I am seeing a little bit is, as I said before, we can't go back, right? And I think the mentality that when is this going to be over? You need to just accept it's not going to be. And if you want to be a part of the future of internal communications, say goodbye to the templates. Say goodbye to, hey, Cindy and Steve, do you have like the formula? Like, what's the formula for good leadership communications? Or do you have a template of a communication plan we can use? That all goes out the window. I think the future of what we do hinges on the fact of our ability to constantly evolve. And it has never been a more important time to do the listening part. It's not optional anymore. People aren't all under one roof anymore. You've got to go out and ask people, listen to people. Are you getting what you need in order to feel connected? Are you getting what you need in order to contribute to success? Are these channels working? There are so many tools at our disposal. I think a lot of the problems we're seeing now is that everyone's turning everything on because they don't know what else to do. Well, employees don't know where to go. There's no direction. Like, how do we all come together and make sure we're getting the same consistent messages, the same type of information we need to really feel plugged in? And I think communicators out there, if you want to like secure your position now and in the future, don't get comfy. Don't just try to find this nice, cool little comfortable template and this is what we do. That's just, it's going to be outdated as soon as you adopt it. You know what I'm saying? So constantly be okay with, all right, that worked 2 weeks ago. It doesn't work now. And that's okay.
Yeah, we're in the middle right now, Sarah, of researching what's going to be a new workshop called the Modern Internet, because it's changed so much. It's always changing, constantly changing. But it, right now, for a lot of companies, the internet is a homepage with a lot of really poorly written stories on there with really lousy headlines and a lot of jargon and bad quotes and corporate communications. And as you know, our motto is take the corporate out of corporate communications and replace it with creative. You know, corporate communications is dead in the water; it doesn't work. But today's internet is too often a homepage with some crappy content, and then all these tools: Yammer and Salesforce and Oracle and Teams and Slack and as Cindy said, we're just turning on these tools and hoping people use them, but there's no coherent strategy behind it, and that's the problem. And I think that's one problem. And the other problem is what I spoke about earlier, and that's this lack of community. And somebody in one of our roundtables had a great quote. He said they work in the UK, and they work at a place called At Home, and they started an at-home group volunteering for teens. And he said in the roundtable, I thought it might work and it might not. 6 months in, we've been shocked at how much teens across the globe have craved a time to spend together online just to bond, to introduce their pets, to involve their kids, to have a cocktail. Deliberately setting aside time from top down has been the key. It's been a huge success for our employees and the team's morale. So I think we have to make special efforts. I mean, otherwise, work just becomes a list of tasks. You're going out of teams, you're checking off, you got your homeschooling your kid, you're just going to work to get the minimum done to keep your job and do okay, but you're not connected. You know, every employee engagement survey in the world says it's all about feeling part of something bigger, understanding that your company's doing good work, understanding that your colleagues are dedicated and committed. That can all come down to communication, to bring those things to light, to share those stories. But guess what? It takes time. You have to get off your ass and stop writing stories from PowerPoint decks that suck. You got to go out there and talk to people. And whether it's virtually in a Zoom call or a Teams call, you got to get out there and find those stories. We need to go back to the roots of communications, and that's being reporters. As Cindy will tell you, it's all about listening to people. We don't do enough of that. We're in our own little virtual bubble. We go to our team meetings, and then we write our stories that we're told to write and to do what we do. And then we wonder why we don't have that quote unquote seat at the table, which is a terrible phrase. So, I mean, this is going to be a very hard time for communicators. We need to say no to a lot of the bullshit that, we can't be the company's Kinkos anymore. For too long, we were the Kinkos. We fill orders. You want a speech? I'll give you a speech. You want a PowerPoint? I'll give you a PowerPoint. You want a press release? I'll give you a press release. You want a story for the internet? I'll do that. We've got to step back and say, what can we do to build this culture or keep this culture, to drive home the values again, to create community, to build that sense of engagement, to give people a sense of purpose? That's not going to happen if all you're doing is reacting to stuff. You've got to get out ahead of it, tell those stories, find the time, make the time, and make them interesting enough to people will pay attention to them and feel connected.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk about where I like to sometimes get down into the weeds on this and I know if you teach on this, we'll certainly send everybody to, your roundtables, your classes, but can you give us a place to start? I'm heading into 2021. I know I need to listen. I know I need to do all these things. Where's my first step? Can you talk about maybe, a process? I know you just told me if there's not a formula. Now here I'm asking, do you have a process? Do you have a framework, to help our listeners be better listeners? What's a good first step? Like if you're not doing this and you didn't do this, you're gonna have to go back and do this. Have you found that out?
I wish you could see us, because Cindy and I are both now hitting each other in the arm and saying, pointing to ourselves, like, I want this. So, of course, Cindy will go first. Go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. There is a process.
Bullshit.
There is a process that we follow. I think the number one thing is to really think about your internal audiences. And first, how do you categorize them, right? What are your segments of audiences? And once you have those defined, grab a few and talk to them. I think a lot of people get intimidated by the term communication audit. It is a lengthy process. If you do everything from A to Z, it can be expensive, but you don't have to do an audit, a full blown audit all the time to keep your ear to the pulse of what's going on and what's working and what's not, right? But the most important thing is if you're going to take the time to do any kind of listening, you want to make sure that you're doing it with purpose. And that's why I always start with, okay, well, how would you define who you communicate to? What are those buckets of people? And then what's the best way to talk to them? Not everybody can get on a Zoom call and, shoot the shit for 30 minutes. You might want to send them a quick pulse survey. Maybe it's important if they're all call center people or manufacturing floor people. Maybe it's best to just first start with their manager group and just find out, all right, you guys are not sitting behind a desk at home every single day. You actually have to come in. What's the best way to get information to you at this point? What are some of the things that you keep getting asked that we can help communicate for you? But unless you really define those buckets of people, you're just kind of throwing darts in the dark. You just really want to make sure, who do I need to talk to and what's the best way to talk to them? I always start with ask people first, what do you need? And how is it going? And how well connected do you feel? And when you start hearing things like, no, we don't feel connected at all, why? Can you give me an example of your experience? How can leadership help improve that? How can communications help improve that? Just really getting solid examples from these groups and chip away at those issues one by one, but it's targeted when you start defining who you should be communicating to in the first place.
Yeah, I have to agree with Cindy that I think that's the biggest mistake communicators make is they don't talk to their audience. When we do our face-to-face workshops, there might be 80 people in the room, and we'll say, how many people here have done focus groups? 3 or 4 hands might go up because they're intimidated by it. They think it's got to involve a one-way mirror and tape recordings and all
right.
that. I mean, it's not. It's 8-10 people over a pizza lunch and talk to them. What's working? What's not working? What aren't you getting that you need to be getting? That kind of guerrilla, what we call guerrilla research, is critical, especially now because you know what, Sarah, the things were changing so rapidly anyway before COVID in terms of attention spans, in terms of competition for content, in terms of people having ADD and just being on devices all the time and everything going mobile. Everyone's getting everything off their phone now. I mean, things were changing so fast for this industry to begin with. And then you throw COVID on top of it, and everybody's from home now, and you can't do the town halls, and you can't do a lot of the face-to-face that you used to be able to do. So those two things converging has been a real, I don't think there's been this much change in the employee communications industry, I guess, since the advent of electronic tools like email and intranets. That was the only change that I can think of in my career that's been anywhere near this big was that. And, now, Cindy said, talking to them is everything. And I would put in from the content tactical side of view is you got to look at your channels. You got to ask people about how they want to get information. We had this one client, and I interviewed the CEO, and he was a terrific guy. And in the beginning of COVID, he was doing these wonderful videos that were pretty down to earth, and people really liked this guy. He's got a lot of credibility with employees, and our research showed though that he was spending all this time doing these videos. And they were kind of corporately produced somehow. He got people to his house somehow. He was done from his home. And nobody was listening to him, even though I love the guy, because they were 4 minutes long. A couple focus groups revealed that. We talked to him. He got it down to 45 seconds to a minute at the most. And the numbers went through the roof. Just by simply asking people, what do you think of David's weekly video message? Well, I listened to like the first 30 seconds, but I don't have time to listen to a 4-minute video. And you might as well ask him to watch Gone with the Wind. So just things like that is this newsletter that we're breaking our ass to get out every week. Is anybody reading it?
Yeah.
Too often we don't do that. So from a big picture point of view, we need to work with leaders to say that, hey, remember the beginning when we were so gung-ho about keeping this company together? We need to get back to that. And here's why. I'm talking to people and here's what they're hearing. And B, let's make sure that you get in the right channel to do this. And I think that's a great start. I think we need to go out and talk to our employees and then talk to leadership as well.
Circle is a proud supporter of the Internal Comms Pro Collective. Built with the internal communicator in mind, Circle Broadcast eliminates many of the day-to-day stresses that internal comms pros face. Now, their easy-to-use suite of tools help you demonstrate the power of internal communications in your organization. With Circle Broadcast, internal communicators spend less time being an order taker and more time engaging their audience. Greatness awaits. Request a demo at circle.com/ICP. That's CERKL.com/ICP. Now, aren't these two just a breath of fresh air? I gotta admit, it's really hard sometimes to engage in that tough love talk, but aren't we so much better for it? Now, in this next part, Steve and Cindy give us some of their best internal communicator tips from clients they've worked with all across the country. One of them I've even used with my own team. Stay with us till the end as their tough love talks ends on a high note, leaving us feeling full of hope, full of good ideas that we can actually execute, full of knowledge, and most importantly, full of confidence. Confidence to use COVID-19 to reshape our internal communications to make our employees feel a part of something much bigger. Now let's jump back in.
One thing, sir, I just had a brilliant thought. See, this is what happens with me. I have brilliant thoughts all the time, and then Cindy has to deal with them.
Yeah.
So many communicators are pissing and moaning about the virtual world and how hard it is. We need to flip that and say, you know what? Let's take advantage of all the advantages going virtual has. I don't have to go to Omaha to sit in on a sales meeting with that division. I can actually just plug into their Teams thing in my pajamas. I don't have to necessarily get on the CEO's calendar to go to his office and meet his administrative assistant and then wait there while his meetings run long. I can say, ping me in Teams when you can talk for 5 minutes. Boom, you're done. It's a lot easier in some ways now. You're missing that face-to-face component, but it's pretty damn close with Zoom and Teams and everything.
For sure.
So let's start taking advantage of this new access that we have, this new world that we live in, instead of bitching about it and saying, well, you know what, we're losing our culture. Everyone's feeling disconnected. We can stitch our companies together virtually if we're smart about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talked about there are people out there kicking ass. So when you think about your favorite people that you're working with, give me what characteristics do you see of the internal communicator that you think will sort of have a leap year and what do these people look like? What are they doing? Who is kicking ass out there?
Well, I would say it's the people that are adaptable. Honestly, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it's really true. There are tons of people in our industry who are plowing through with the way they've always done. They're pushing out the same newsletter. Their intranet looks the same as it did before COVID. They're not building community spaces. They're not embracing it. They're just doing, business as usual, and it's not working anymore. That lack of transparency, the lack of community, all that stuff is eating away at their credibility. We have the ones that are realizing that the world has changed. We have a client, Nebraska Medicine, a guy named Paul Baltes, who's become a good friend. We did a full audit for them last year. A lot of it happened to be virtual. And they just changed everything they did. They changed their newsletter. They changed the frequency. They changed the style. They changed, they had no mobile access. They now went to a mobile-first platform. So that all the content they create, they're assuming people are going to read it mobilely on a mobile device. Their town hall used to be once every 2 months. They started doing weekly town halls, Sarah, where they used to get about 400 people in the auditorium. They now get over 2,000 people on not Teams, Zoom. Mm-hmm. It's a Zoom webinar feature, so they get over 2,000 people. They just went to every other week now. They were doing it weekly during the crunch, and they were getting over 2,000 people on there. Tons of questions, and they got remarkable scores from us when we surveyed on leadership transparency, communication quality. But they changed their frequency, they changed the content, they changed everything to adapt. And I think it's going to be the people who say, as I just said, it's going to be people who say, oh, bitch, virtual, I'll do what I can, I'll get the news out. Those people are going to end up failing. And the people that say, you know what, I'm going to seize the day. It sounds horrible to say that COVID is an opportunity for communicators because it's a disease that's killing people. But it is, not to sound callous, but it is an opportunity for us. Communications has never been more important. when people working from home, and culture has never been more important. And yeah, it may be a little harder to do in some ways, but it's easier to do in some ways. So the people that just embrace this new world and change their tactics, change their channels, change their content, push leaders out of their comfort zone. We can't just be smilers and nodders to leaders anymore and say, oh yeah, that 5-minute video is really great, John. No, we got to say, John, no one's watching it. As good as you are, as much as they like you, it's got to be a minute or less. If you want to do 1 or 2 a week and they're a minute or less, it's better than doing one every 2 weeks, which is 5 minutes. So we need to speak truth to power. And we do that, as Cindy said, by having a little bit of data. Cindy has a favorite expression that she always uses. You never wanted to go into an executive's office and say, I think we should do this. You should always go in there and say, the data shows that we need to do X, Y, and Z. If you are doing some research on the side and you're doing it, or you're hiring us to do an audit, I mean, when we do an audit for people, they use that data for 5 years.
Yep.
It is rock solid. It's quantitative. It's qualitative. It's got quotes. It's got hard numbers. The executives have bought into it because we always include an executive interview part of it. It's just, it's worth it if you can hire us. Great. If you can't, do what you can do on your own, and use that to make the changes that are necessary to survive today.
Yeah, and I just would love to add, the communicators that are really doing a bang-up job right now, they are not afraid to admit that they don't know. They don't know what works. They don't know. Nobody does. And this is why it is such an opportunity for us. There's never been a time to try something new. And there's nothing wrong with looking at your executives and saying, this was the business case why I tried this. This is what I was trying to achieve. Here's what I learned from it. It's either worth doing or it's not going forward. People who are just afraid to try new things, that, again, don't fall back to the same old, give it a shot. It might work for a month, and that's a win. That's a huge win. You've got to take the bull by the horns, take some risks, be okay. Some things won't work, and that is absolutely okay. Just make sure that you have a plan in place to figure out that it's not working, and what are you going to do from that point forward. But you got to try new stuff out there.
Marketers test stuff all the time that doesn't work. Why don't we do that with our internal audiences? We just keep doing the same thing. I call it check the box communications. I got to do a story on this. I'll put it there and I'll put it in that channel, and there I communicated. Well, nobody opened it, nobody looked at it, nobody read it, nobody watched it. What does it matter? So we got to get away from that. I think the other quality that people are successful communicators are realizing that the workforce is getting younger, and how they want to get and process information is changing dramatically. Our son, Zach, is a senior at Purdue, and he's a communications major, so he's been interning with us. If anybody on the audience wants to hire a really smart 21-year-old kid in their communications department, he would be an asset.
He needs to start paying rent, guys.
Yeah.
Hire him.
Yeah, please. He's really smart and really good. But anyway, he's been interning with us, and he actually interned. He went on an audit with us in Nebraska. And we're looking at the channels, and he did focus groups with Cindy, and he sat with the executive interviews and everything else. And he's looking at the channels. He goes, Dad, these guys are using mostly email and this website, meaning the intranet, to communicate. And I got news for you. Nobody my age pays attention to email, and nobody goes to websites. It's all on the phone. It's TikTok. So smart companies are embracing tools like TikTok for employee communications. They're embracing this mobile first strategy. They're embracing the fact that people today, younger people that are all coming into the workforce, they want more transparency. They want more two-way communications. They want to contribute to communications, not just be passive consumers of it. They want to be involved, and they want it on their phone, and this is how they do it. This is how they've lived. This is how they grew up. And then they get into the workforce, and it's all intranets and email newsletters and PowerPoint from executives. It's really boring.
Stuff on stone tablets.
Yeah, and these people just shut down that stuff. So we got to be ready to change. I mean, we got to be quick on our feet.
It's the companies that have great cultures and are doing it right virtually. I think they ask themselves one question to start their whole virtual strategy, so to speak, and that's what makes our culture successful? What is it? It's not about channels. It's not about tools necessarily. It's how we use them. It's our voice on those. It's how we treat our employees. It's how we engage and interact with them. And then you kind of fold in the tools you have at your disposal to really bring that to life in a different environment. Start at the heart of it. What is it that makes us such a great company to work for? How would you describe your culture? What are those characteristics, those features? And then how do you use the tools at your disposal to bring those to life? And that's your answer right there. It's mostly how you talk to people, how you talk with people, how you listen to people that really help make people feel connected, even though they're not all coming under one roof every single day.
Yeah. Well, and the relevancy. I mean, you're right. They are wanting that consumer grade experience. And so they expect that from their employer.
Yeah.
So we got to go to our content focus and say, okay, what's the best content that we need to produce that's going to drive engagement, reduce turnover, build our sense of values, reinforce our mission? What's the content, creative content that we can do? And then we'll figure out the channels. We'll figure out the best way to put it depending on the audience. But we're too focused on getting our newsletter out. We're too focused on updating the intranet every day. We got to get away from our channels and get to the content side of things because that's what really matters.
Give me some ideas. I know you love to talk about content and storytelling. Any great ideas you've seen out there? Any quick wins that we can quickly apply of things that really worked well from your own examples or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
people you've worked with?
There's one that I love to talk about, and you've heard me talk about this, I'm sure. But first of all, I want to say back to what you were just saying. Communicators are often their own worst enemy, Sarah. They assume they won't be able to do things, so they don't even try. I say proceed until apprehended. Try new things. They might not work, but you know what? When you list the values, every company has their stupid mission, vision, values. I say stupid because most of them are stupid. When people do it right, like Southwest Airlines, and the mission and the vision and the values are actually a tangible thing that are driven into the DNA of the culture, they are so powerful. But too often the mission, vision, values are generic and they're all sound the same. But you look at the values of any company, and I guarantee you, 98% of companies will have innovative as one of their values. We are an innovative company. We take risks. And then you look at their communications. And I love doing this exercise for clients. I'm saying, here's your company values. Here's what your communications looks like. It does not reflect your values. You're not innovative. You're not transparent. You're not treating employees with respect.
You're not forward thinking.
You're not doing anything with your communications have nothing to do with your values. So just apply your own values, the ones the CEO has signed off on, to communications. Be innovative. Try new things. Try new forms of content. And one of the things that we teach is the 6-word stories, which we love. And we've probably had 20 clients do a version of this campaign. And you go out to employees, and it's very interactive, very conversational, and say, give me a 6-word story about this company, your job, our mission, our values, what makes this company great to work for, what is it about your clients that you love, get something. And we've gotten clients who have gotten over 5,000 employees to submit 6-word stories. We've had clients turn them into posters for conference rooms. We've had to turn into story walls where the entire wall of a conference room is 6-word stories. We've had people do them electronically. We've had people turn them into videos. We've had people turn them into external blogs. We've had people use them as recruiting tools for HR. It's a perfect model for modern day communications. It's the employees telling the stories. Your employees have the most powerful stories. They're the ones doing the work. They're the ones making the product. They're the ones dealing with clients. They're the ones solving problems. It's a way for them to communicate, but it's short. You're not asking them to write a 16-paragraph blog post or sit for a 2-minute video. It's short. It's powerful. The first 6-word story was Ernest Hemingway's "For sale, baby shoes, never worn," which, a baby died. There's a lot packed into those 6 words. Well, you'd be surprised we've had people...
So inspiring, yeah.
Yeah, we've had people re-engineer their entire town halls to turn them into 6-word story fests, where the CEO gets up and gives his 6-word story about the new vision or a new initiative, and then everybody else comes up with their 6 words, and they stand up and read them, and people are emotional, and they're pumped up, and they're powerful.
Ohio State Medical Center just did this because we went through a whole training with them, and when COVID hit, in order to keep people energized and guys, keep with it. We know these are horrible, horrible days for many of you. They did a 6-word story campaign about how they are contributing to hopefully the end of COVID. And it was just awesome. I mean, the
nurses, doctors,
the
orderlies.
visuals that came out of that was just absolutely awesome.
And the way they did it was you had to send in a picture of yourself holding your 6-word story on a poster board or something like that. And the creative things that people did to come up with ways of delivering their 6-word story.
Really cool.
But nowadays, we had one CEO who was rolling out a new vision, and he was going to do death by PowerPoint. He showed us the PowerPoint, and as your consultant, you have to go in and tell people, powerful people, that their baby's ugly. Like imagine going to see somebody's baby and going, God, that baby's hideous. What happened to that baby? What happened? Oh
What did you
God,
feed it?
it's gross. Well, I got to go and tell the CEO that his PowerPoint sucks, that his video sucks, that he looks like a hostage video. You know, so we did. I said, this PowerPoint's going to kill people. It's going to suck the life out of your vision. No one's going to pay attention to it. We got him to switch to do a 6-word story on the vision where he showed his, and then they gave him 10 minutes to write their own, and then people stood up, and it was a massive success. But he said to us, Steve, Cindy, what if I do my 6-word story and nobody else does? And I look like an idiot. I said, John, all I can do is guarantee you that's not going to happen. That's not the way the world works now. People want to contribute. They want to participate. They will appreciate having a say. They'll appreciate having a voice. Sure enough, they could not read all the 6-word stories. They had to collect them after the thing. They turned them into posters. They turned them into electronic posters that they could actually change out every day. So every day on the workspace now, there's a new employee with a 6-word story electronically on a poster. Just really powerful. Talk about building culture and engagement, showcasing your employees and their pride and their passion. That's what this sense of belonging, to circle back to how we started, that's what builds that sense of belonging. The passion people have, the pride they have of where they work, what they do, what their colleagues do. That's what we have to start doing our content about. Yeah, we have to deliver the news. And we have to do that concisely and clearly with minimal jargon, transparent as possible. But then we also have to tell these deeper stories, whether it's via video or podcast or written words or intranet or whatever, 6-word stories. We have to get that other content out there.
Yeah, and another great example, Steve. What was the? We show it in our master class all the time. It was we had the opportunity to be judges for an internet competition from a company that's based in the UK, and they sent over all these examples, and it was one of our favorites. They had it was a home rental property manager.
Earlier, yeah.
And so they're leaders. This is a great example of leader communications, making them authentic and real. But she would go into leaders,
the communicator
would go into leaders, pick one strategic topic. Like, this isn't what's your favorite color or, whatever. This is a topic in our industry that employees really need to know about. And she would tell leaders, you have 60 seconds or less to explain to employees why this is so important or what they need to know. And she actually would put a timer on the screen that counted down the 60 seconds. And depending on which leader it was so funny because you could see them watching the clock on their desk.
And the videos were entertaining, short, and from there they would link them to more information on the topic. Then you have your FAQs and you have your longer articles and you have your
infographics,
your other stuff. Yeah. But the videos were a hook. And in this day and age when everybody has ADD, there's so much white noise coming at them inside and outside the job. We've got to hook them. We've got to do something.
Whether it's different ways to say the stuff that we know we have to say. Yeah. And again, there's never been a better time to take a chance, take a risk. Everybody is trying to figure out what works, and what works constantly changes. So you really can't get away from just giving it a shot. Just the most important thing is just have a way to acknowledge what works and what doesn't, so that you don't keep doing stuff that doesn't work, right? So this is time. Like, have fun with it and go for it. I mean, this is exciting.
So what are you looking forward to in 2021? What kind of things you offering? What can we get involved in? Give us some ideas here. You said you got the roundtables that you're doing.
Roundtables are awesome.
A couple things. We're starting a series of roundtables. Our first one is launching next week.
It is.
I know we did a couple like informally last year just to test it, and we basically did them as happy hours. After our master class, which was virtual, we said, you know what? In the real world, we go to the bar afterwards, so let's have a virtual happy hour. So we did the master class from like 1 to 3, and then at 5, people came back. And this is just how much people want this informal discussion. We had packed rooms for our happy hours and just free-flowing discussion about topics that mattered. And the topics that kept coming up, we're now doing more of a formal roundtable. And our first topic is helping managers communicate in a virtual world. Manager communications is hard in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Now that they're not actually meeting with their employees face to face, how do we help them navigate this new tricky world? And we were going to do one roundtable with 10 people. We had to expand it to 4, so we're now doing 4 roundtables, and we have a waiting list of about 50 people on it.
Yeah, it's pretty long. So
now we're going to do the next topic. I forgot we have 3 topics sketched out. So we're very excited about those. Those are free, by the way. We're not trying to make money off it.
Check us out. It's search for us on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Facebook, all of those areas. Beautiful.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's on our website. So there's that we're excited about, and then our normal virtual workshops. We're really getting away from just doing webinars that everybody's doing. We're trying to make them as real life as possible with more interactivity, quizzes, games, even virtual happy hours. We're trying to
Discussions, that type of thing. Everyone's getting sick of the talking head on their screen. So again, we all have to constantly rethink how we do these things. So the way that we used to always do it used to work okay. Now we've pushed it. So we really do pride ourselves on making it an interactive, personalized experience as opposed to here's your URL, log in, check your email while we're talking. We don't want that to happen. So it's a much more interactive experience, and all those workshops are available.
Well, and I encourage all of our listeners to go check out one of those workshops, not only because of the content, but also the way that those are, laid out gives us ideas on how to make our own virtual events even more engaging. So you kind of get a double dip of there's two things kind of going on there simultaneously. And I love that you guys continue to innovate, reimagine, and model the way for not only the internal communicator, but also the one man, one woman bands out there trying to do some stuff. And, I think the other trend I see, which I love this, being, now in the entrepreneurial waters for almost a decade, I see entrepreneurial tendencies and characteristics coming out in internal communicators. The polish is off because we don't have time now, right? They're testing things. They're getting okay with, hey, good is better than perfect, or done is better than good. Like, let's get it out. Let's start testing some of this stuff. It feels like that's another silver lining of COVID, that there is this testing and trying and innovation that they're really ripe for, because they didn't have a choice. They had to do it. Are you finding that too with who you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it goes back to what we said. Some people, and not everybody certainly, but some people are taking advantage of the situation to push the needle, to push the envelope, I should say, to try new things, take some risks,
Have
to do
fun
some things,
with
have
it.
some
Yeah.
fun. Somehow, some way, way back in the 50s, someone said corporate communications shall not be fun. We shall leverage our core competencies and shift our low-hanging fruit to change the paradigm of how bullshit. We are people talking to people about their work and the work they do and how that means something as part of the bigger picture. We need to focus on people. We talk in our workshops how we tend to focus on the 4 Ps: processes, programs, products, and policies. Well, the only P that matters is the people. We should focus all of our content on people, the people that are overcoming challenges, people that are making it work, the people that are passionate about what they do, the people that are helping our company succeed. All of our content, when we work as a coach, when we work as, creating content for actual people, which we do quite a bit of, that's my one rule. We have one job. Our job is to make the important interesting. Safety is incredibly important. It's also really boring. Wellness, corporate initiatives, flavor of the day, all that stuff is kind of dull, to be honest. Our job is to make the important interesting, and you do that by focusing on people. We are seeing a lot more of that happening because what's missing in the virtual world are these people stories, or everybody's at home. So we got to get into their homes. We got to get in and figure out how they're working, how they're succeeding, how they're overcoming these challenges. And I think we're seeing a lot more people do that. And Sarah, before we go, if we are going, I got nothing to do today. I have nothing to do, so I can
Steve
talk to you
doesn't
for 10
really
hours.
work.
I stopped working in March.
In March.
Yeah,
Quarantine's like heaven for you.
last
This is
March.
like,
Great. I'm going to take a nap after this and then start
oh
drinking.
my God.
But before we go, sir, I just want to thank you for
Yes.
doing what you do. You keep thanking us, but these conversations, these type of podcasts, it's a way for us to stay connected. I think it's such a valuable service, and I know it's not easy. I know it takes a lot of time. Nobody's paying for anything. It's really a valuable service that you're doing, and keep it up. And
Yeah, if
we
anyone
love it.
wants a best practice, they should check out what you guys do all the time, because you do the human element and keep it exciting and creative and new. I mean, out of all of the things that I get sent to me in email to take a look at, and here's this week's roundup of new, I always open your emails, always. And it's just the way that you guys write them. It's the way you think about your content. So guys, I'm not just saying this because Sarah's on the other line, but you ask us about who does it right. You guys just do such a great job. It's a real honor to be a part of it.
How come the other day I was in the other room and I heard, oh, Christ, another email from Sarah Jackson? Doesn't she have anything better to do?
Right. You can imagine that, right, Sarah?
Well, everyone seems to kind of question, and why I like having you both on here is you have such a way about you that's like, you can do it, go do it. Like, if you need somebody to say, go have fun and make this awesome, here's your permission, go for it. So,
Yeah, that's just
Love
because
it.
we've seen it happen so many times. I mean, people that try to do it usually succeed. Of course, you're going to run into barriers. You're going to run into meathead executives who don't want to do anything new or creative. You're going to run into approval process issues. You're going to run into stuff. But most people are overcoming that. And the reason they're overcoming it is because they have the data show that the old way doesn't work. We need to try new
Crucial.
things.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I can't thank you both enough for spending the afternoon with me. And I can't wait till we can go line dancing again and do a happy hour and have some fun.
I
Right?
know. I know.
That's what we need to do. Yes.
Oh, I love hanging out with you two, and I know our listeners will totally enjoy this. Stay connected with me, and we'll make sure again we include all the notes and resources and everything you guys got going on in the show notes. I can't thank you enough.
Love you,
Thank
Sarah.
you so much.
Love you
Yeah,
so
we
much.
love you
Thank
guys.
you, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Well, there you have it, folks. Tough love and truth from two of the best in this business. Now, if you want to get in touch for Steve and Cindy, yes, even for a happy hour, we'll put all their information in the show notes. Stay with us next week as our journey to uplevel your internal communications to the pro level continues.
Internal Comms Pro, the podcast, is produced by the Internal Comms Pro Collective and proudly supported by the Circle Broadcast Suite, an entire suite built for internal communicators. Learn more at circle.com. And don't forget to visit www.internalcommspro.com/show notes for our free resource guides. Thank you for listening.